Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining myself and Stephen here at the Marketplace Conference. So by way of introductions, I'm Ezra, founder, managing partner of Starting Line, a consumer-focused VC fund. Stephen, you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Stephen. I'm the founder and CEO of Cameo.
Cool. And this is, I think, year 3 for both of us at Marketplace Conference, right?
We are the Marketplace Conference OGs. I came to the first one. I think you snuck me in and got me a little badge, and now we're talking on it.
Awesome. So for those who don't know, Cameo is a marketplace that connects talents, celebrities, athletes with their fans for the most magical fan experiences on earth. And I was fortunate enough to be an early investor in Stephen's business. It's been a really, really fun journey. But what we wanted to chat about today is some of the best marketplaces it's not intuitive. They're not intuitive, meaning it's not intuitive that a stranger would drive around another stranger, or that a stranger would, allow another stranger into their private bedroom. And it's not intuitive that there'd be tens of thousands of celebrities right now or talent walking around making personalized video shout outs and messages for their fans. But Stephen, I believe we're approaching the millionth cameo of the business. So there's been quite a lot of them made in the last 2.5 years or so. So anyway, our hope is today to unpack some of that non-intuitiveness of what's really going on behind the supply side of Cameo and what makes that business effective. Sound like a good agenda, Stephen?
Yeah, it sounds good. And, Ezra, thanks for the kind words. When you say it's been a fun or wild ride, I can tell just how much fun you've been having by looking at all the gray in your beard. So I think I've given Ezra most of those gray hairs, but it has been a fun ride.
And I think you win the award for best beard at the Marketplace Conference.
Yeah, this is pretty strong.
Cool. So let's just start at the top. So for most marketplaces, supply is generally easy to onboard, right? A lot of marketplaces are kind of lead gen, meaning, you're a doctor and a marketplace comes to you and says, we'll drive more patients, right? That's a no-brainer. That's incremental revenue. In your case, though, it wasn't so simple because your supply, your talent has a lot of demands on their time. Can you walk us through how you started to get them comfortable with being in this kind of new marketplace environment, the kind of earnings per minute calculation, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, I think at a high level, one thing that really motivated me and Martin at the very beginning as we had the idea for Cameo was actually a documentary that ESPN did called Broke. And in the documentary, it said that 80% of NFL players go broke 5 years after playing their last game. So if you're a Tom Brady or you're a superstar on the team, you're going to make generational wealth, and your grandkids probably couldn't go broke if they tried. But for the average person, I mean, they're taking themselves out of the normal workplace. Imagine, if you play 2 to 3 years in the NFL, you develop a lifestyle, you make more money early in your career than you would for the rest of your life. In fact, I remember early Martin was at a conference that A-Rod was hosting in LA at UCLA, and A-Rod said that within a professional athlete's life, they will make 95% of all of their income before the age of 28, right? So think about that. I mean, for all of us here, for the very most part, if we're in a normal professional career, we're going to make more money every single year. You go work at a company, you get promoted from entry level on up. But, these athletes are faced with sudden wealth. And I think this is true for a lot of different places in the creator economy that at least I've learned about. So I think at the very beginning, like the nuance for us is that we weren't targeting to make Tom Brady more money. We were really trying to prevent these people who were more famous than they were rich from actually like going broke and living on the street. And I know one heartbreaking example for me in Chicago was Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks passed away right around the time that we started the company. And for those of you who don't know Ernie Banks is Mr. Cub. He's the most famous Chicago Cub, greatest player in franchise history. And Ernie Banks died penniless, which, was crazy to me, right? Like, this is a guy that, any CEO or any, billionaire in Chicago would, take on vacation or pay for their meal. Like, this guy never paid for anything in Chicago, yet because he played at a time where the financial incentives of baseball were not what they are today, he was broke. So, we really felt that there was an arbitrage between fame and the ability to monetize. And in this new world, there's a new class of creators coming up that I think you're seeing on SoundCloud, you're seeing on TikTok, you're seeing on all these other places. And interestingly, my third co-founder, Devin, was actually one of the original Vine stars, as you know, Ezra. And Devin is someone that had over 1 billion loops on Vine, but he was never able to monetize it anyway. So if you were to go to Coachella with Devin, packs of girls will run up to him like it's Justin Bieber, but it's just that those fans care about Devin as much as Justin Bieber's biggest fans care about him. He's just got way less of those fans. And, so for us, we really did believe as we were dreaming the idea of Cameo, we had pretty high conviction that demand would want this. Like when I saw the first video, which Martin got for a buddy of his, it wasn't for me. I didn't know who the athlete was. I didn't know the subject of the video, but like you watch this and it's such a wow moment. So I had pretty high conviction that we could people would want to buy this if this was available. The question for us was always on the supply side. Could we get the talent to do this at scale, and would they enjoy doing it? And that's why we really set about building a product that they would do for free, but they get paid.
So that all makes sense to me for the long tail, the people who, the non, $10 million a year earners. I remember though when Andre Drummond came on the platform, he was, I don't know, he must have been making $10, $20 million a year, all-star, power forward for the Pistons. And I couldn't understand how he came on. What was the sell to get someone like that on board?
It was a Jedi mind trick. We introduced them to a concept called earnings per minute. I told Andre, take 25 million, your on-court earnings, divide by 2,000 hours in a work year, 50, 40-hour weeks, divide that by 60, and you make $208 per minute being a max salary player in the NBA. So if you make that, then suddenly, you can look at selling a video for $100 or selling a video for $150, which costs less than a dad taking his son to go see him play, right? And suddenly, my pitch to Andre is like, you are making more money per minute doing Cameo than you are playing in the NBA. And guess what? You're already making that money. So like, instead of making 25 million for the minute that you're doing Cameo, it's like making $50 million that minute.
Got it. So what's interesting about Cameo is a lot of the, kind of upstart marketplaces now, Uber, a lot of the gig worker marketplaces, Uber, Instacart, so to speak, they're kind of, the people who do those jobs are relatively similar. When it comes to Cameo, each of the talent in our marketplace are kind of their own small business, their own merchant, so to speak. From a product perspective, how do you think about arming them with the tools that they need to build their business on a nascent platform that they don't really know what to expect? Like, what's the funnel and the journey there for them?
Well, I think it starts with having a lot of empathy for the creator and for the talent. And again, this is where Devin, my one co-founder, who was a creator himself and was never able to monetize, and then Martin, my other co-founder, who was a Hollywood producer, an NFL agent, and he was not the agent signing Tom Brady again. He was signing Cassius Marsh, the 6th round draft pick of the Seattle Seahawks in 2015, right? So to us, I think everything starts with empathy and the fact that we know talent extremely well. Secondly, I really think that, for us, this is part of what we've learned about the talent ecosystem is that increasingly talent need to go direct to consumers to monetize and to make a living. Legion, who recently left, and Dreesen, wrote a blog post that's kind of become Bible in our space. And it calls this economy the passion economy. And the thesis is that, new tools like Cameo and Substack and, even OnlyFans and the adult content, Patreon are allowing talent to survive now, not with 1,000 fans, which people thought, but maybe with 100 dedicated fans that they can get them to spend $1,000 a year with, and suddenly that becomes really interesting. And I got in. I had a pretty controversial quote in the New York Times on Tuesday or on Monday where I called all celebrities gig economy workers, but the truth is, Every single athlete gets paid per game. Every musician gets paid per concert. Every single actor gets paid per show. Every comedian gets paid for stand-up. So the dynamics really aren't that different. It's just that they're more famous.
So from a product perspective, how does Cameo as a business allow them to build their business on the platform? I mean, the title of this is, turning your supply into your ambassadors, and Cameo's done that. What has the business done well?
So there's two things I think we've done well to help talent, again, monetize their social in a brand positive way. Our core value prop to talent is that if you join Cameo, you will get paid to become more popular. When you make a Cameo video for someone and they receive it, that customer, that fan, is a bigger fan of you after, right? So if you're in the fame game, the viral feedback loop of getting money and getting more famous is a really, really powerful one. And I think that's resonated with everybody on the platform. Secondly, one interesting dynamic of our marketplace is that our supply can literally beget its own demand, right? So unlike a Grubhub or Uber or Instacart, the grocery store cannot market itself. The Uber driver cannot say, I need to pick somebody up on Market Street, and like that driver is there. Like the platform is so impactful for this. So in the marketplace, those marketplaces, they can't just add 1,000 pizza parlors, right? If you're a Grubhub in the early days, like you have to add 3, then you got to get demand to make that happen. If you add too much supply, then you're going to kill it. The interesting thing about Cameo is that talent can always promote. They can always drive bookings to their own page. So for us, it's really about giving talent the ability to throttle willingness. And they do that by price. We let them set their own price. If they want to do more, they charge less. If they want to do less, they can turn themselves off or they can raise their price. So by giving talent, I think the tool is to throttle supply and demand. That really helps them, do as much of this as they want to, or as little.
Can you also spend a minute maybe talking about the altruistic angle of the platform? I think that's been interesting that with the current kind of COVID-19 situation, that by enabling talent to raise money for causes they're passionate about, you've really turned them into brand ambassadors in a way they never were before. But it's not only is it brand positive, it's actually raising real money. What's the journey?
Yeah, we've always had a charitable component to Cameo. I think actually the first viral moment we had was the summer of 2017 when Hurricane Harvey happened. And we got all of our talent to promote and donate all of their proceeds for Labor Day weekend 2017 to like the Hurricane Harvey Relief Fund. So this has been in our legacy. We've always seen that when we compare with the great charitable cause, it drives bookings and it increases talent willingness to promote their page. In April, we wanted to do something about COVID. We'd seen some great tailwinds to our business, and we told the talent, like, hey, let's partner with some charities that we can all get behind and see how much money we could raise. We raised $725K in a weekend, which for a marketplace at our size is a tremendous amount. We're still fairly small, Series B business. And we got over 1,400 of our talent to join us in donating 100% of their proceeds. We donated 100% of our 25% take rate to everybody, whether they opted in or not. So then incredibly, the talent could say, hey, I want to be part of this charity. In June, we have a big one coming up for Pride Month where a lot of our talent are going to be opting in to support GLAAD. So we're always looking for interesting new partnerships. And I think that, again, goes to that brand positive side and monetizing their fan base in a brand positive way doesn't always mean putting money in your pocket. It can mean, raising money for a charity. And when you look at most of our talent, they're already getting hit up all the time to sign a jersey and put it in an auction. This is just a scalable way to do it.
Got it. So one of the interesting things to me is that I feel like one of the mistakes that a lot of early stage marketplaces do is they try to scale their supply acquisition when it really needs to be nurtured. I remember you sending me some pictures from the early days of like taking the entire vlog squad out to Blackhawks games. What were some of the tools you'd used in the early days to really engender the supply to who you were and what you were doing that don't scale today?
Well, first off, it's not thinking of them as supply, right? I remember the first time Jeff Wiener's an investor, and I remember I was telling him the first time I met him, and used the phrase, if we just acquire more units of supply. And Steven's like, and Jeff's like, Steven, don't ever say that again. These are people. Rolling out the red carpet is a value at Cameo. We are in the entertainment business. We are dealing with VIPs. We treat them like VIPs. We do all types of cool things to engage our talent base, whether it's, throwing parties at NBA All-Star Weekend, sending care packages. We send our top 100 talent, Cameo Air Jordans this year. And, just seeing them kind of posting that on social and how much they love it. We send, I think for probably the first few thousand talent, we sent every one of them a T-shirt and a hat. And we really have tried to cultivate this idea of the Cameo Famio. So it's really building community around our network. And I think our brand has become one that, it's a cool enough brand that, Snoop Dogg can wear it on stage at a concert, but it's also accessible enough that, a Dick Van Dyke or John Cleese, isn't scared because it's like two Gen Zs. So we've had a good mix there.
Were there any decisions that you feel like you made along the way that enabled the brand to be cool in the way it is now? Because I think that has been a big part of talent wanting to wave the flag.
Yeah, we picked the right name. We got a great branding firm. Cameo could have been named Hero Hub and Thrillo and Hyped HYPD. Power Move was the original name we went out with. My brother came up with the name Cameo. It was the right name. We found this firm in Miami. They built a very iconic logo. So I think all of those were cool. We used really bold and interesting colors. So I think we really wanted to have that mix of accessibility, but also with coolness.
Cool. So we've got only 3 minutes until Q&A. I guess probably the last question is, it really takes a ton of focus to get early stage marketplaces to really be liquid between supply and demand. What were the categories in the early days, whether that's kind of Real Housewives or cosplay, or they kind of took off? And how did you start to realize it? What in the data made you realize these categories are important? And how do you kind of focus in on them? And what were the effect of that? Meaning, if you got one housewife, did she tell her friend? If you got one, Bravo random, did they tell their friend?
The first category was anybody that would say yes to us. When you're building a marketplace and you have no fans and you have no talent, you start with your friends, and we were very fortunate that a couple of our friends were able to come early and really help, and we were building for our friends. And I think that's a really important thing in any marketplace, that your supply well, and you're able to build tools that really fit with them. We started with pro athletes. We didn't find a tremendous amount of product market fit there. We also started with fitness stars early. Again, we didn't see much traction there. And then one day, Devin, my co-founder, comes down and he's like, I think Cody, his roommate with 3 million YouTubers, who is one of the biggest stars in the world on Vine, and people like Cody would do well at this. And the second Cody came on, we found our initial product market fit with former Vine stars and content creators. And it makes sense, right? If you were one of the biggest people in the world on Vine or YouTube, you're in the NBA for making video content, and we sell video content. So that kind of made sense. We found reality TV to be a big one. Sonia Morgan from The Real Housewives, I remember that was a really big moment for us. And when Dennis Rodman and Brett Favre joined, those were a couple keystone moments, I think. And then what we started to see was when a bigger talent, I remember there was this guy, CT Fletcher, who joined, who's a huge influencer in the fitness community. When CT came on, it unlocked all these bodybuilders. We had Mr. Olympias and, all these guys from Muscle Beach, a guy named Shad Gaspar, who unfortunately just passed away, who's a, really good friend of Martin and I, WWE wrestlers. So one thing we found was when we do activate, we get a bunch of supply in a vertical, but if we find a halo talent, one that's going to bring the eyeballs, it'll unlock other people, in our ecosystem. But in the early days, people were like, I want any Laker, and we'd go get the 15th best Laker and put him on, and he would do well.
Got it. So would you say that getting a halo talent kind of lifted all boats? Meaning, if you're the number 4 person on the Lakers and you get number 1, is that number 4 happy?
Yeah, certainly, because the price points are going to be different, right? If if LeBron was on, he'd probably be $5,000 or $10,000. But there's there's probably people that, are $100 that are more affordable. So it just depends on where you are in the spectrum. In fact, I was talking to Bob Costas about this last night, and Bob was telling me that, when his daughter was in middle school, her favorite baseball player was David Eckstein of the St. Louis Cardinals. And at the time, Albert Pujols was the biggest player in baseball, but he got David Eckstein to come to his daughter's birthday party. And he told me, he's like, to my daughter, having Albert Pujols come would not have been a bigger deal than Eckstein. Like, that was her favorite person, and that was just as cool as anything. So it's the same philosophy.
Got it. So we are now open for Q&A. I see one from Kate in the chat box. I'll say it out loud to see if you can read it. What are the 2 top things Cameo does to help your talent grow the fan base? And what are the 2 top things talent does to leverage it?
So one thing that's pretty cool is that the vast majority of Cameos, 80% of them are shared. So they're bought for somebody else. So I buy for Ezra. Ezra then shares it on social. So one of the things that's really cool is that the customers and the fans are basically amplifying the talent's brand. I think it's most similar to almost like merch when you go to a concert and you buy your favorite band's t-shirt and you start wearing it around. The fans are becoming living, breathing billboards. And a good example, I saw on LinkedIn, somebody bought the singer named Michael Franti, who I'd never heard of. And it was the most incredible cameo. I bought it for my mom. He made my mom cry, and my mom has watched thousands of cameos. She then shared it with all of her friends, and now there's a huge Michael Franti fan base in the Greek American community in Chicago. Everybody likes Michael Franti now. So I think that's a really interesting thing. And what was the second question?
Sorry, I think it just disappeared on us here. What are the top 2 things talent does to leverage it?
Yeah, and then
I think they just have to make
making great videos. Right? One thing that's cool about Cameo is that it's the people that are the most famous on Cameo or that do the best are not the same as the ones that do the best on Snapchat or Instagram. If you think of Instagram, it's like the Jenners and the Kardashians. If you think of Snapchat, it was DJ Khaled. If you think back to Twitter, it was like Ashton Kutcher. So every single platform creates its own, stars that are breakout. And on Cameo, you can be an old, fat, bald guy like Brian Baumgartner and make $250,000 a month. And it doesn't matter, how you look in a bathing suit. So for us, if you're authentic, if you're funny, that's really, and if you have either some zeitgeist of what's going on right now in the culture or nostalgia, you'll do tremendously well with us.
Cool. Question from Samir. How do you incentivize repeat engagement from your customers?
Yeah, that's like the $10 billion question for us. We're constantly looking at this. We have very high NPS, but frankly, we're still trying to crack the nut of customer repeat rate at scale. One thing that we didn't do is we didn't sell any cameos in the app for the first 3 years because of the Apple tax. We have released the app, re-released the app this year. It's now about 15% of our revenue, up from 1% last year. That's coming through iOS. And we think that there's a lot of levers that we'll be able to pull both on customer loyalty and customer gamification that, should incentivize more. But right now it's primarily through email, and it's, and that's hard too, because most people purchase for someone else. If you bought a Real Housewife for, your good friend, but you don't like the Real Housewives, we're pinging you when we add the next Real Housewife. So we just need to get to know our customers better. And frankly, we've overinvested on supply and underinvested in demand. And I think when you ask where the puck is going, it's going to be, really getting to know our customers a lot better than we do today.
Great. As an investor, I found it interesting that as the quality of talent on the platform has increased, it's kind of lifted all boats from a kind of retention perspective. Let's see. Next one is for Steven. Is it true that you created fake Instagram accounts in the early days to ask people to?
We never created fake Instagram accounts, but actually what we did was we would take all of our employees and just have them DM celebrities hey, have you heard of Cameo? Here's this site. So it was real accounts. It was just telling them hey, I'm a fan of you. I'd like to be on, which was absolutely true. The other thing that we did that was a good hack early was if you went in the search bar and we didn't have you on Cameo, then we would prompt you as the fan to tweet at that talent saying like, I want to book you on Cameo. And that was a really good viral loop for us early.
Cool. Jen, I think we are out of time. A question for me, but I think Jen will let you guys go. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining. This was a treat for me, and I hope for all of you. And hope to see everybody next year and hopefully, God willing, in person marketplace.
Thank
conference.
you.
Thanks, everybody.